Well, the format's doing it again. We're going through another slight shift in the meta. We've seen decks like Ruby Amethyst and Amethyst Emerald both dropping out of Tier 1, while a couple other decks are actually moved up into Tier 1. If you're wondering where this information comes from, there is a spreadsheet linked down below where I track all the tops of the format. So it's 100% results based. There's no opinions here other than the fact of what I consider a top, which is listed on that spreadsheet. So we're going to dive on into an updated tier list heading into our final weekend of set championships. There was over 300 total tops compiled for this information. So out of those 303 tops, you need at least 10% of representation, which would be 31 in this case. For tier 1, you need at least 2% for tier 2, so 7%, 7 tops. And if you have 6 or less tops, you're in that rogue category. This is far and away the healthiest format. Just during set championships, every single color combination has topped an event. Not just this format now. The last 2 in set championships also got it. All 15 color combinations topped set championships. That's the first time that has ever happened, and all 6 colors are represented in at least 25% of deck choices. So it is the most balanced, equal, even format we have ever seen, and I think that's really healthy for the game. There's 7 very strong, viable decks. Obviously, 26 decks here can top, but 7 of them to me stand out above at the top. There are 11 in the tier 2 1-2 category. I just think like the bottom of tier 2 is noticeably weaker than the top of tier 2. However, you can still take them, and maybe it's not that they're weaker, but it's that they're less represented, less people playing the deck, less chances it has to top. So we're going to start going through the list and getting on into it. We have Amethyst Emerald Discard, and this is the deck that it dropped out of Tier 1. It was Tier 1 all format up until this current week, and now it dropped down. It's sitting at about 8-9%, right in that range. So like I said, it's under the 10% threshold of Tier 1, but it's still a very viable, very strong Tier 2 strategy. We're going to stick with Amethyst Emerald, and this one also in Tier 2. We're seeing the format slow down a bit, so I wonder if we're going to start to see these aggressive decks picking up, which, I mean, we already kind of have, and we'll get to that here very shortly. Ruby Amber. Amber Ruby. This, I feel like I needed a Amber Ruby, like aggro, racers style image, and I'm like, I don't have one ready to do with the video right away, but that and Mufasa both I feel like fit in the rogue category. So just look at this as Amber Ruby, the racer racer aggro deck, or Ruby Fasa even if you want. Either way, I think that they encompass the same category and are a rogue style deck. Amber Steel. This is our first Tier 1 deck. It was Tier 2, but like I said, the format's slowing down, and all of a sudden we saw this deck go out and show out and perform. Out of the 106 tops that I just added to the spreadsheet, 16 of them were this deck, including 4 first place finishes. Amber Steel Aggro is in a very good spot, just the way the format's shifting. Like I said, we've been seeing red, blue, shark and items both popping up a lot. Blurple shooting up the list, and although I don't think that this deck has a good Blurple matchup, if you hit the right curve, there's no deck in the game that is going to stop you when you play Amber Steel Aggro. Blue-green items. Pretty strong rogue deck. I think that next format post-rotation, maybe it gets a little bit better. The song version of this deck takes a few hits. Speaking of, it is going to come down here in Rogue as well. I think the song version, losing Under the Sea, losing Kita, losing Muses, is going to pretty much go away. However, the Clarabelle item Oswald version, I think, is possibly going to creep up into that Tier 2 status. I just mentioned Blurple, and Blurple was, again, it was one of those top of the Tier 2 strategies, and it had a pretty good showing and moved on into Tier 1. Personally, I absolutely love Blurple. I just put up my big in-depth video where I talked about pretty much all the matchups, broke it all down. I had 50 matches that I tracked and recorded on the play, on the draw. I went 35 and 15 over those 50 matches, and that's a mix-up of set championships and Lorcanito best of threes. So if you want to check that out, go for it. And I actually have a post-rotation template list that I talk about and say why I think Blurple is actually going to be a tier 1 deck post-rotation. Blue Steel Aggro. We're going to stick another one down here in Rogue. The majority of these decks are going to be in the Rogue category. It's just how it is. Again, you needed 7 tops or more to make it up into tier 2. I think that Kiwi Birds is a fun deck. It's one I put together to potentially take to a smaller locals. Ended up doing something else instead of going to that, though, so didn't end up playing it there. Blue Steel Control. We're starting to see Wheel drop off, but it just had a decent weekend. I got 2 or 3 more tops. Still down in the Rogue. I think it's got 3 or 4 total at the moment, and it's there, and I think post-rotation it's going to be a better Rogue deck. I don't think it's going to creep into the tiered status just yet, but I think it will still stay in a Rogue or high Rogue category. Churnadogs. This is a deck that I thought was going to be a lot better. And I think post-rotation, this deck is much better in a high tier 2. But for right now, it's one of those lower tier 2 decks. And it's still there, sitting at about 4%. But it's not what I thought it was. I thought this deck was going to perform a bit better than it has in the current format. Do I have 2 of these in here? Do I have Emerald Ruby here twice? No. Yes, I do. Emerald Ruby, I do have it in here twice. I'm going to use the Undermine for our picture. It just won a 73-person Sharp Gaming event, and it has a couple other tops as well. However, it's still in that disc Rogue category. It's like a Emerald Ruby action, Emerald Ruby discard. I was going to say, I thought I had the image in there. I must have missed it that I had it twice. I think that it's a very spicy deck. I've seen it popping up on Lorcanito a bit more and more. I think it's missing a card or two, so maybe next set it pops up and does really good, but it might focus more just into the general strong actions and less into the discard aspect. I still think Undermine is an incredible card that sticks around, but obviously you're losing Prince John and those avenues of the deck, so it'll need a different draw engine for it to truly survive. We have a couple Emerald decks now. We got Emerald Steel Aggro, Emerald Steel Discard, which surprisingly is in Rogue, Emerald Steel Damage, all 3 being down in the Rogue category. The Damage deck I think is fun. It's really fun to play against. It's really fun to play with, but I don't think it's there. The aggressive version I think is spicy. I just think Amber does a better job spamming out characters, does a better job having higher willpower on their characters, and their bodyguards are just better. And then the discard version is very surprisingly Rogue. With where the format is at, I think Emerald Steel Discard really should be in that mid to high tier 2. Maybe people are just tired of playing it and it doesn't have the backing of it. But I think Emerald Steel Discard is by far the best Rogue deck, and I would actually put it ahead of a few of the tier 2 decks even. But again, this isn't my bias. This is based on the results. Amber Amethyst Hyper Aggro. Well, it got its top for set championship, guys, so it did make the Rogue category. Still, it's not Amber Steel. When we look at aggro decks, it's pretty much Amber Steel and then everything else. Purple Steel Tempo can be very quick too. And then you have Churnadogs. That is another one. Kiwi Birds even. All of those 4 aggressive decks I just think are better than Amber Amethyst in the current meta. Jafar Wheel. It's sneaky, it's niche, it's gimmicky, but it can get the job done, and we've seen that already time and time again. Lemon Lime Discard, Amber Emerald. Whether you're piggybacking off like the Kita under the sea combo or just muses and bouncing everything, There's so many different routes that you can play this deck. It's super intricate. I've been actually playing it a bunch and trying to learn it as well. I think it's a very spicy deck, and it has some good matchups into the meta. You got Blurple and Shark that it has pretty good matchups against. Steel Song can be rough, especially if they're playing Prince John. Or not Prince John, Grab Your Swords. If they're not playing Grab Your Swords, that definitely helps out a bit. And the aggro matchup can go back or forth. You have the tools for it, but sometimes aggro just hits the curve or you miss your cards and you don't quite get there. But I think that this deck is poised to be in a very good spot just because of its matchups in the tier 1 category. If you want a rewarding deck that if you put in the time on it, you can definitely make it pay off, I think that Amber Emerald discard is that deck. Mushu's got its top, guys. Mushu goes into our rogue category, as does Pirates. They're both kind of just those fun, gimmicky decks that are going to stick around post-rotation, and maybe... Can I honestly say they're going to go tier 2? I don't think they do. Maybe they do a little bit better. Maybe they get a few more tops than they currently do, but I don't think that either one pushes up that much further. We see just kind of the general color combinations doing well, whereas like these thematic style decks just kind of staying down a little bit. And I am working on a video talking about a bunch of decks that I think are going to be viable and briefly talking about them. It's just hard because there's so many reveals left, and that could change a lot in the meantime. Purple Steel Tempo. I know the pictures maybe aren't the most up-to-date and accurate here. Maybe throw like Doc instead of Calhoun. But Purple Steel Tempo, it's surprisingly done really, really well in set championships. It's one of those top 7 decks where, like I said, it's those top 7 and then it's everything else. And part of that's representation. Part of that is just power level. Like I said, Amber Emerald discard and Emerald Steel discard, I think, are 2 decks that could be right up in the thick of things and really go at it. 2 Ruby Amethyst Evasive, 30 tops, 303 total. That's not 10%. If you round it up, it is. It's actually 9.9%. But last time I checked, 9.9 is lower than 10. So Ruby Amethyst falls from glory all the way down to that 0.07 less than tier 1 status. So realistically, Ruby Amethyst is right there as a tier 1 deck. It's just missing one singular top. If out of the next 7 results, one of them's Ruby Amethyst, it's going right back up to tier 1. But again, pulling the bias out of the video and putting it this way. Red-blue items. It's another one of our tier 2 decks. It's the last of our tier 2 decks. And again, I think all of tier 2, Churna Dogs and Amethyst Emerald Tempo to me are the 2 weakest links. And I would even put Emerald Steel discard and Amber Emerald discard both above these 2 if I were to rank a top 10. I'd probably have Churna Dogs fall out of the video. I'll actually rank them after we go through and show the final results. We got Red Blue Shark. It was my deck to be the second best deck of set championships. I just thought it did too much and was way too strong. I should actually go back at that video and look and see what I had as my total top 10 breakdown. I know I had Purple Steel at 10. Ruby Amethyst, I think I had at 7, something like that. I know I had Blurple at 3. I had Shark at 2. I had Steel Song at 1. So we hit 1, 2, almost 3. I want to say I had Amber Steel Aggro at number 5. Yeah, number 5. Because I think I went Steel Song, Shark, Blurple, items, Aggro, and then I had Emerald Steel discard, which Amethyst Emerald discard is the one that kind of popped up and performed a little bit better. Then Ruby Amethyst, Blue Steel Aggro, I want to say I had in there maybe at 8. I don't know. It could be fun to look back and just see how close we were at picking out which decks were going to perform the best. And lastly, we have another deck that's just popping up and pretty spicy. It's the Amber Sapphire aggro deck, and you can't call it puppy deck. You play Patch and Thunderbolt. That's it for the puppies. It's just a very ward aggressive style strategy with a bunch of your ward support characters even to deal with your opponent's boards. Alice, again, Thunderbolt being very strong, and you don't always give the extra lore to one of your characters to quest, a lot of the time you play your Thunderbolt, exerted as bodyguard, you quest with your Alice, and instead of getting the extra lore, you give your Thunderbolt ward, so now they have to attack into the 3/7 body, and they can't use like Zeus, strength, things like that to get around it instead. So if we look at it in a sense of what is just performing, this is our current tier list. If I were to rank my best decks of the format, where do I think, oh my goodness, what would I change around? What would I change? I actually think Steel Song does better than these two, but worse than, or not Steel Song, Blurple is better than Shark and Amber Steel, but loses to Steel Song. Steel Song loses to Shark. So it's like between these three, you got a little, my computer is geeking out. Between these three, we got the little triangle where Steel Song beats Blurple, Blurple beats Shark, Shark beats Steel Song. People might disagree with this here. I don't care. I'm just saying I completely think that Blurple has a slight advantage there. And then you have the aggressive deck, which beats Shark, can beat the other two, but often isn't beating them. Ruby Amethyst. Do I think that they're right appropriate? I do. I think that the item deck, however, I'd probably put there. So again, now I'm just trying to, I'm going to get these all out of my way. I'm going to go and I'm just trying to rank my top 10. I'll put 5 or, yeah, 4 or 5. Would I put them in top 5? No, they're going to be up here. This deck's going to be up here. So that's what, 4, 8, 12. That means 2 decks got to come out. It's definitely going to be those two. So which one of these would I put as the 5th best deck? Probably items. And again, this is solely best deck. I'm going to go Amber Emerald at number 6. I still think Purple Steel down there at 10. If I were to rank my 10 best decks, again, this is completely biased. This is now my opinion. The tier list we just saw before, results-based. Representation plays a role in that. This is my biased opinion on the best, strongest decks for the format. So I got Steel Song at 1, Red Blue Shark at 2, Blurple at 3, Amber Steel Aggro at 4, Red Blue Items at 5. Then I got the Amber Emerald discard at 6, Ruby Amethyst at 7, then Amethyst Emerald discard at 8, Emerald Steel discard at 9, and Amethyst Steel Tempo at 10. I think I'm pretty content with that being my top 10 decks in the current meta. And again, that doesn't mean anything down below can't compete. That's just my top 10 decks. Don't forget, we have our 6,000 subscriber giveaway still going on. We're going to give away a box of Fabled. If we can hit that goal, we're slowing down. We were making good progress early, a month and a half ago, and we really slowed down. We got to hit 6,000 subscribers to give that box away. And if we don't, well, I'm working on a contingency plan to get a box to somebody. So stay tuned for more news on that. Thank you guys for watching. As always, take care.